In this video, I'm going to explain how to do the parting in layers. I'm going to explain it step by step. We had a plan here that the scale was from 1 to 100, and we changed it to 1 to 50 to test it. What do you have to do when you're parting a layer? If I'm going to part a layer, for example, 3 layers, then I have 3 sheets for this layer, right? I put another sheet with a smaller scale. I put the overall of this plan inside of it. So what will happen here is that if I'm going to part a layer, I have a sheet with a smaller scale inside of it. You might want to know why do we do this. When the plan is working, first it sees the overall of the plan with knowing what is what. Then with a larger scale like 1 to 50, it also sees the parting of the project. The information that we put in this parting plan is much more than the information that we put in the overall plan. The information of phase 2 that you put in the overall plan is very little. For example, there is not much information about the height, the size of the windows, and etc. It is mostly to see the overall plan of the project. The information that we put in the parting plan is much more than the information that we put in the overall plan. For example, there is not much information about the height, the size of the windows, and etc. The information that we put in the overall plan is much more than the information that we put in the overall plan. In the parting plans, we measure the size of the door, the size of the window opening, the size of the back of the frame, the thickness of the wall, and etc. But we do not do that in this overall plan here. So far, we have learned that each layer of parting plan has an overall plan too. In that plan, we show a lot of information, and then we show the complete information in the parting plans. Let's go to our work. Here I have a plan called the ground floor dimension plan. Okay, so I here named it overall. If you remember, when I brought this plan in a sheet with a scale of 1 to 100, if I rotated it in the sheet, it wouldn't fit. Let me bring the sheet here. If I come here and put this on a scale of 1 to 100, it will not fit vertically again. But if I rotate the sheet, it will fit. So I come and show the overall plan with a scale of 1 to 100 and rotate it because it fits with a scale of 1 to 100. After 1 to 50, it becomes 1 to 100. Now, for example, we have a scale of 1 to 75, which is not very standard, and it's not correct either, so it is better not to use the scale as much as you can. So I can show this with a scale of 1 to 100 here. Now, some of you may say that I put my overall plan with a scale of 1 to 100 in a sheet, no problem. Put it at 150. Put it at 1 to 200 if your plan is so big, because you're not supposed to show the information of the phase in that plan. Remember this. Our overall plan is a complete representation of that layer. And in fact, it's a trick. No one looks at the overall plan carefully. No one zooms in to see, for example, whether it has a number or not. No, it just gives us a complete view of that layer, and if it wants to check its information, it checks it in parts and plans, not its overall plan, because we didn't show anything in the overall plan. So be careful about this. The scale of the overall plan is not very important at all, because this plan is a not useful plan that we're showing here. I can say that this is kind of a key plan. For example, in the overall of this layer, now its part plan is like this. We complete information. And now how do I rotate this plan in the sheet? You select this view in Properties. We have a button called Rotation on Sheet. Now, this is on the None mode. I open it and set it on 90 degrees clockwise. It also has 90 degree not clockwise. I see the set it to 90 degrees and make it its place. You can also move it a little bit, so you have to do the leveling later. This is my overall plan, right? So we're done here. Now we close it together so that the overall plan of our ground floor layer is in 90 degrees clockwise. This is the overall plan here. Now, what do I have to do to come and make this part of this plan? Like what we did in the previous session, I have to get a series of duplicates from this ground floor layer and create its parts. Why do I have to do this? We basically have two ways in Revit to make parts of a plan. I don't say plan because it also becomes a part of your layout. We have two ways to make parts of a view. One way is to crop. I'm sure you've thought of it. You come and say, well, for example, I come from this view, I get a duplicate. For example, I want to make a part, then I come here and I turn on the crop region. Then I come and say, for example, if we want to make parts from above, for example, this becomes part 1. Then I come again and get another duplicate from here. As you can see, I'm getting a duplicate again. I will turn on the crop again. I say, for example, this becomes part 2 of this layer. Now you have to be careful here. For example, how much axis do you put in a part? For example, I come down here a little bit. I put it up to 5. Here it is just above axis 5. I come down a little bit more and it becomes like this. I say this in part 2, I duplicated the rest again. I say this in part 3, that's right. In my opinion, this is a better way to do it. Then you change the name here. Here it says, for example, this ground floor dimension plan, part 1 to 3. Then part 2 of 3, then part 3 of 3. This is one way. Well, in my opinion, it's not a very good way. I mean, there are another more basic ways. We always use that way, but crop is also one of the ways you can do part building with it. This is the crop method. So it's not a bad either. It has some disadvantages. Now we use the same method I just mentioned. Another method we usually use in projects is scope box. If you come to the top of the view, here we have a section called scope box. What is scope box? Look, in our own crop, but it's another model. I mean, you can name it. You can specify the crop you have created for one view. You can't have 1,000 crops in one view, but you can have, for example, 10 scope boxes in one view. Let's test it together. I come here and I get a duplicate from my coworker's layer. Here I have already returned the crop. So be careful. This plan you have here, it's called the overall plan, which was created with a scale of 1 to 100 in the sheet. You don't have to do anything with this anymore. When you want to do a part building in it, the first thing you do is get a duplicate from this view, because this view itself has another layer. You don't have to work on that view, right? Now to make a scope box, what steps do we have to go through to be able to have a basic part building in Revit? So you have to pay close attention here. The first step is to get a duplicate from this view, actually from my ground floor view, and it becomes this, right? Then I come here and I return the scope box. I turn off this crop here. I come here and return the scope box. You have to draw this frame yourself. I say that one of my parts will be from here to here. Now it doesn't show because my scope box is probably off. So I will come from the annotation header and I will turn on the scope box. I draw it again to make it clear. I come from the view header. I return the scope box here. I say that one of my parts is from here to here. Right. This becomes one part. As you can see, when you choose the scope box, now you can move it up and move it with this handle. You can give it a name from here. For example, I can say here, part 1. Part 1 of the dimension plan, right? Now I'm going to have 3 parts. I have to draw the parts here. I return to the scope box and draw part 2. Just be careful that when we tie the project to the part, it's very good that the parts have overlaps. I mean, this should happen, actually. I mean, I don't have to draw from this side to this side part 2. I say that part 2 will also be from here to the top of this elevator. I will draw another one. I say from here again with an overlap to the end. This is this. I will give it a name. Part 3 of dimension plan. So I will name this other one part 2 of dimension plan. Right. So I gave each of them a good name so that I know what is what. So far we have learned that with Scopebox we can also perform part blending, but in my plan, still blurred, well, I just came to drew the parts. Now in the next steps, I have to come and specify these parts to this view. I mean, for example, one of my views takes this scope box, another view takes this scope box, and another one takes the last scope box. And we will talk about this in the next video.